we've come now to the final part of STS's functions that are used when running an operating session. And this is where we will deal with loading cars, unloading cars, and releasing the empties for future use. We want to look quick at the review of the life cycle here. The parts where the humans intervene in this are when the car has been spotted at its loading location. STS will already start the loading process, but the humans have to confirm that the car is loaded. Well, once again, when the car arrives at its unloading location, STS will start the unloading process. Humans need to confirm that the car has been unloaded. And finally, when that car is now unloaded and empty, humans need to determine where it will go next, either to be reused on another load or to be put someplace in one of the yards for storage and hopefully future use. So when it comes to unloading and unloading cars, you can STS allows you to load and unload cars as often as you please. However, it's normally done once per operating session. That's typically the same thing we do with the car cards waybills. If you have a very busy customer, one that maybe works 2 shifts or 3 shifts a day and gets switched 2 or 3 times a day, you can load and unload cars as often as you wish. If there are a few times where the cars would be unloaded or loaded and unloaded rather quickly, for example, with stock cars. And so if you're running fast clock, you can load and unload those stock cars rather quickly. Again, STS has the ability to do that whenever you wish. It just takes the operators to decide when they want to do that. And lastly, we have to take into account some customers that might not load and unload cars very quickly. This is not uncommon in the prototype world. So there might be some industries that might take a couple operating sessions to load or unload a car. The bottom line is that the human operators decide this. STS does not dictate when cars are loaded or unloaded. Besides loading and unloading cars, we also have to deal with empties. Once a car has been unloaded, it should be used to fill another car order if needed. Railroads do this because they want to turn these cars around as fast as possible in order to generate as much revenue as they can. If the car is not needed to fulfill another load, it should be repositioned to a yard, normally as home location, and it can sit there until it's needed again. In either of these cases, either where it can be reused to fill a car order, or if it's moved to someplace until it's needed, it needs to be pulled off of that customer siding. If we leave a car sitting at a customer siding, incoming cars won't be able to be spotted there. Also, once the empty car reaches a location where it's to be held, that's as if it is not being needed to refill another order, somebody has to tell STS that it can now be released for future use. To do all this just takes one click on the after operations section, load, unload, release cars. STS will then display a list of all the cars that are either in a loading status, an unloading status, or have just been repositioned as empties. And to load and unload them, all you do is put a check mark in the box in the left-hand column, and then click the update button. If you do not want a car to be considered unloaded yet, because it might be one of those customers that takes a couple days to do it, just don't put a check mark there, and it'll stay in its either loading or unloading status until you get around to confirming that that operation has been completed. So here you can see that we marked all those cars as being loaded. Press the update button, and you can see their status has now changed to loaded. So these cars are now ready to go, and in the next operating session, or even the next train on the way out, we'll be able to pick them up and move them on their way. Okay, we'll just review the steps that we've gone through so far in all these past videos. First of all, we want to look at the setup procedure. First thing you do when you set up the STS database is to put the railroad's name and initials into the settings screen, because that appears on a lot of the documents. Then you enter the commodities that your railroad will transport. You enter the car types that are necessary to haul those commodities. You enter the stations through which the trains will pass, and you enter locations for each of those stations. Those locations can be as specific as a track and spot, or a track and a door number, or they can be as general as just the yard. Once you have those 4 items in, then you're ready to enter the shipments themselves, and that includes the commodity that will be sent, how often it will be sent, the type of car it needs. Once those are done, you can enter the car data. Following that, you'd enter the jobs that will run on your railroad, and for each job, you'll enter the job description, telling them what to do, and the various job steps. And job steps are where you list the stations through which the job will pass and what it will do at that station, be it set out, pick up, or both. Once the jobs have been entered, then you can get into the routing instructions. Those are the instructions that are provided to each of the station personnel to tell them which jobs will be handling which of the cars that are located or ready to move out of their station. Once the setup's complete, now you're ready to do the before operations tests. This is what you'll do before every operating session. You need to go through and have STS simulate all your customers ordering cars. Then you'll fill those car orders and then reposition any empty cars that need to be moved, such as ones that may be on a customer siding, or you might want to just move a bunch of cars to a yard in anticipation of their future use, or maybe some of the yards are just getting kind of full and you need to kind of redistribute the empties. Once those tasks have been done, you can start running your trains. To do that, you go to each station and generate switch lists for the trains that will pass through that station, telling them what those jobs will be picking up. Once those switch lists have been generated, then the crews can run their trains. And using the switch list information, they'll pick up cars as specified, organize them if they wish, in order to make or I should say organize the switch list so it matches the physical arrangement of the cars in their train, and then they set out cars. Once all those trains have been run, and once the day is finished, you get into the after operations task, which is to tell the STS that the cars that are in loading status are now actually loaded, cars that are in unloading status are now unloaded, and then you should reposition your empty cars so that we don't have any of them blocking the customer sidings for the next operating session. So once this is done, then next operating session, you go back to the before operations tasks and just repeat the process. Be sure to check the YouTube site here for a follow-on video that will actually demonstrate how to use these various tasks while running an operating session on the Emerald Junction branch line.